who are now trapped in a different set of bad circumstances with abusive, cohabitating partners instead of a husband who loves them and takes care of them. We're trapped in this two-income trap. We have women who are trying to juggle everything and balance everything and are struggling to do that and are reporting higher levels of anxiety and depression. I'm not here to condemn women. Brian's here to condemn me personally, apparently, which is the actual ad hom argument. If he had an actual argument rather than just pointing at me, that would be fine. But if all he's here to do is say, well, but you got divorced because you were in an abusive marriage, that's actually not an argument. It supports my argument that you could be able to get out of abusive marriages, and you were. You were actually able to get out of abusive marriages prior to no fault. No fault means you don't need a reason, and the other party does not have to agree. And that's where I think that we went wrong.
First of all, there's somebody that wants to stay home without a lot of debating people, so I really don't understand that argument.
Well, are you aware of how we address that? Since this is the back and forth. So this is the back and forth.
I know, but that was like 10
But you already got it wrong. So my children are...
You got everything wrong.
My children are grown. No, I got everything
I know they're grown.
They're grown up and out of the
Can I
house.
just finish?
So I've never said that women can't leave the house when their kids have grown up and left and that they can't
Do you
play.
believe women should be allowed to vote?
Do you think women are chained to the kitchen? Do you
I'm
think
asking you a question. Do you think women should be allowed to vote?
I think it would be better if women and many other groups didn't vote. I would categorize women as one of the groups that should not get.
Is there any other demo that shouldn't be allowed to vote, or is it just...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways that you could limit suffrage that would make everything a lot more fair and a lot more efficient. I think that if you're taking more from the system than you get, so that would be a great way to limit suffrage. It has to be a net zero taxpayer. You can't be taking more than you're getting. So if you're getting more in SNAP benefits and
So
welfare,
voting should be based on how much you pay in taxes?
it should be based on whether you are contributing to the system or not. If you're taking more than you're contributing, no, you shouldn't be having a voice in government. You should also have to take a civics test, proving that you have some rudimentary understanding of how our government works.
A lot of people wouldn't vote for Donald Trump if that was the case. But anyway, so you don't think that women should be allowed to vote? You don't think women should be allowed to vote?
Yeah, would you go ahead and explain why?
No, you know why the birth rate is so low?
No, he doesn't want me to.
Well,
I will.
I find it interesting that you want to take away one of the fundamental rights of a woman, which is being able to vote. By the way, women are, I think you're aware, bringing children into this world.
Not enough.
Well, yeah, why? Why is that? What's the number one reason why women aren't bringing children?
Do you want to know, like, the actual correlate?
No, I want to know the polls of the last 2 years and women have asked, because I have to tell you right in front of me right here. What is the number one reason, Rachel, why women aren't bringing kids into this world in the last 2 years? Do you know the reason?
I can tell you what the actual data says. The data says that the number one correlate to declining birth rates around the world in every culture, regardless of income or religion, is women's access to higher education and civil liberties.
Not true. So according to the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, which has been told for the last 2 years, they've done it 8 times. The Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, I'll take their word over yours. They say the number one reason why women don't want to bring children into the world is something called the economy, Rachel. Now let's talk a little bit about the economy.
What's that?
Hold on. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about that, Rachel.
Okay.
Now, who's the real monster?
Why are people losing their medical coverage? Why are people losing their food stamps? Is it because they're just lazy and they don't want to work?
Okay, so we're doing another straw man argument because, yeah, I'll explain how you're wrong. The only people who do have replacement birth rates are the poorest people. So if it was economics, we wouldn't see that the only people having children would be the poorest among us. And historically, everybody has had children during times of
So
much,
it's because of
much
poor people. You're saying the reason why is because poor people can't bring people in the world.
No, I'm saying,
So-
listen very carefully to try to
I'm
understand.
listening.
The poor people are the ones having the babies. So the people who have the resources are opting out because they think their job is more important because they want to take vacation, because they want to pay for a second vehicle.
People that are poor are told, and they're saying that the reason why they're not having kids is because of the economy.
It's
Are they
because they
wrong?
are prioritizing a higher material standard of living.
So what has changed then in the last...
Materialism.
So
Atheism and materialism.
okay, so you think it's atheism?
It's atheism and
Because they don't believe in God, and
It's
that's
because
why
they're
they...
prioritizing having stuff and having a career over ethical family.
What do you think? Do you think taking away health care and
I think what we should do about that, I'll tell you what we should do about it is what I'm doing right now, what Andrew does all the time, which is explain why atheism is retarded. And why you shouldn't hold to secular materialist worldviews that have no grounding, that have no fundamental basis for morality, and lead you into depths of despair, and lead you into anti-atheism where you won't even reproduce
You know what?
yourself.
I keep saying that you were part. So first of all, to use that word and to call, no, it's not good for her to use that word. To say that just because we don't believe in what you believe, that people are retarded.
Bro, that's retarded.
Good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Shapiro, a man who has spent his entire career calling people he disagrees with every name imaginable. Idiots, morons, bigots on a daily basis.
You're a buffoon. You are a moron.
This is basically his entire personality. He wakes up in the morning and just goes and insults people who voted for Donald Trump. And yet, Rachel Wilson uses the word retarded to describe an idea, not people, but to describe an idea. And Ryan Shapiro really has a medical episode on stage. This lack of self-awareness is not just remarkable, it's actually clinically fascinating. But now, 6 degrees of orange man bad, round 1. Birth rate declining. Studies say women say economy, reason. Trump president, Trump economy. Therefore, birth rate orange man fault. 6 degrees, later in Now, next, Brian proceeds to spurg out for the next few minutes. And he goes a deeper and deeper shade of red until Rachel eventually gets the debate back on track, which is where we're going to start.
I support, wait, hold on, 10 seconds.
At some
10
point, I
seconds.
have to be able
Okay,
to
at some point you
respond.
will. Finish the sandwich. So, the point that I was trying to make was, I want everybody to believe in what you want to believe in. I'm not going to call you retarded because you don't want to be Christian, because you don't want to be Jewish. By the way, I'm not an atheist. I do believe that there's a higher power. I just don't consider myself an extremely religious person. I would never call you all retarded because you don't believe in the same religion that Rachel believes in. I don't live my life based on a book. You can. I choose not to. That doesn't make me retarded. It doesn't make you retarded. I know a lot of very intelligent people that do not believe in God. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It doesn't mean they're retarded. That is not an argument, Rachel. You're insulting millions and millions of people in this country that don't believe in what you believe in. Go ahead, Ms.
Okay,
Richard, go ahead.
so that was yet another straw man ad hom, not an argument, because, and I'll explain why. Do you know how long the birth rate has been below replacement level? Any idea? Yes. How long have birth rates been below replacement?
I'm going by the last 2 years according to John
How
Hopkins.
long, answer my question, how long have the birth rates been below replacement?
The data I have is the last 2 years.
Okay, he doesn't know, so I'll tell you.
So tell me.
It's been for about 15 years.
Okay.
So was Trump to blame for the birth rate being below replacement in the 90s?
I didn't say that.
Okay, what caused it then? During the prosperity of the early 90s, when we had one of the best economies we've had, why was the birth rate below replacement?
Sure. So I'll answer that, but I'll start by saying this. I don't know what's so funny. I have the study for the last 2 years. Now, I didn't bring up the study for why the birth rate was lower 50 years ago. And the reason why I didn't is in my opening monologue that I told them is that I care about what's going on in this country.
But I just well, my point is true. You said the reason women are you said the reason is this. I'm telling you, it's been this way for 50 years. There can't be anything that's happened
I
in the last
just gave you why women are not having children.
Are you not able to follow
Are
logic?
you not able to listen to logic?
That's not logic.
I just told you right now the reason why women aren't having kids now. Now, I know you care about 50 years ago.
No,
care
I'm
about
talking
right now.
about consistency over
Okay,
time.
and right now, the number one reason is the economy. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Why don't you pay attention?
What I'm trying to explain to you is that even in the 90s, when the economy was at its best, women were still not having more
And
than two.
times change, and people change, and women have different opinions
What I'm
of why
telling
they're
you
doing
is
different things.
this disproves your theory.
No, it doesn't.
You can take one survey.
No, it doesn't.
What you have is one survey. How many people were asked the question in the survey?
I have it right here. 18,000.
18,000.
Yes, 18,000.
And they
John Hopkins.
Right. So you don't think that it could be the case that when they say it's the economy, they're not saying we're starving. They're saying, look, I want to go on a cruise every year. I want that second vehicle. I want a higher standard of living,
Wait,
and
hold on.
I would
Let me
prefer
get
to
this
have
right.
a job and work.
So the
I can
reason
have
why
stuff.
women aren't having kids is because they want to go on a cruise.
It's
That's
because
not
they
retarded.
want a higher material standard of living. And
Okay.
so
All right. How do you
now
know that?
well,
How do you know that?
you did this big long monologue, so now I'm going to do one. If you know anything about the economics of the last 50 years and the birth rates, you would know that prior to pushing women into the workforce in huge numbers in 1970, most women with school-age children stayed at home. Overwhelmingly, there was only like 6% of kids who had a mom that worked full-time. During that time, the economy fundamentally changed into a two-income economy where rather than
I like those odds. Gear up. These enemies won't quit, but neither will you.
Tim
it
Walz
seems.
pushing back on Minnesota fraud accusations following a viral daycare video. So this is Tim Walz trying desperately to save face. Trying so hard to save face, but it doesn't matter. Everybody knows exactly what happened. So I'm happy about this. I feel maybe the country itself's not doing well for now. You check the guy posting along from YouTube? Maybe, I don't know. Minnesota, over 20 locations, 22 search warrants were indicated. Oh, is this and that? This is something else too. And yeah, it's.
Jump from being in debt to somewhere
Isn't it
between
crazy?
$6 million and $30 million in 2020.
Look at all these. How are they all scamming?
They amended the financial
What the hell is going
documents
on?
and released it to show the estate is really somewhere between $18,000 and $95,000. They blame the discrepancy as much as $29 million on an accountant who did not subtract the liabilities of Minet's businesses.
And these are sender Somaliland. They want her. They want her. I think, but we don't want her. They do want her. I think I call the solution for this, right? Is that like we send her over there, problem solved. That's actually crazy. Well, it's because they're scammers. Like the thing is that a scammer, like people do this, like they just do it because they can. They do it because they want, and that's it. Can you explain the revisited version being so much lower? Yeah, because they're lying. Like they made up bullshit. They probably entered in a different type of accounting or something else like that, right? And also, like if this was their range, then how'd you pay out the taxes? Didn't they have over 800 registered hospices in Minnesota, 22 warrants and nothing? I think you're right. I think that you have to have a mass, like a mass event, right? A mass arrest event. You gotta go after a lot of them. Somaliland will jail her. It's all good Somalis in the name of the country and say the same thing. I know. Yeah, so basically Somalia is the bad Somalia and Somaliland is the good Somalia. This is what I'm hearing. And so they made a new version of Somalia, which is like I'm serious, the way it is. And so, yeah. And because apparently, like her dad was a general in the last, the last reason why Somalia was bad, or some other area in Africa was bad. So that's why she has a different last name and everything. And they said she married her brother, etc. It's because they all changed their names so they could avoid the association with their father that was like a general that had to leave the government, right? This is World War XI. I think that's what she was talking about. And yeah, Somaliland patch. I know. And it's really funny. Incest is fucking demonic. Who knows? But yeah, I'm really happy to see this.
We were talking about Abdullah Mohammed Nur. He will spend the next 10 years, though, in federal lockup after investigators say he took part in a $48 million COVID-19 pandemic scam. So this is part of a meal fraud scam, Trace. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars that were meant to feed hungry American kids on a lot of different things. They took stacks and stacks of cash, like you're looking at here. They were blowing on luxury cars, buying audio that's by
Nice place.
Minnesota, and
Really nice one.
a private villa out in the Maldives. That would be nice.
Man.
They did it for the prosecutors.
Man, they were living like ballers.
Popping bottles of champagne out in that
That's crazy.
getaway. Police say the men were happy to be cashing in. They were texting each other, you're going to be the richest 25-year-old, God willing. What is he?
Yeah, well, apparently, no, I don't think 10 years is enough.
Being called the largest fraud scam in history.
Look up all the years.
Governor Tim Walz watch.
Look,
Today, the
see?
Democrat who ran for vice president launched his fraud
Not good.
program. Critics say that's a little too late. The White House slammed him for failing not just his state of Minnesota, but the country. He pushed back.
That airline, no, it's not
Can't
good.
have one without the other.
Uh-huh.
Any amount of fraud is too much. That's
Yeah.
why over the last several years, we've made many systematic changes to state government to both detect fraud and hold those accountable after it happened. Year after year, we brought new ideas to the legislature to stay ahead of the evolving tactics, and they are
Imagine
evolving.
being one of the defenders of the fraud
Okay,
for the last
so
year.
it doesn't stop there, though.
Well-
Prosecutors.
And that's why I think it's funny is that, like, these are search warrants that were, you know, issued by like a judge or something. So, like, do you remember in like December or whenever the fuck this happened? Apparently, people said it was December. Is that everybody was saying like, oh no, you don't understand. Like, all Nick Shirley wanted to do is record a bunch of little kids because he's a weirdo. Oh no, it's because it was Christmas, even though these people aren't even fucking, they're not American, they don't celebrate Christmas to begin with. But like, you know, and all those excuses that they had for that, all those excuses. Well, it turns out that it was all bullshit. Turns out it was all bullshit. Can you believe that? Do you think he's going to forget about how he called everyone racist, tried to shut down a conversation? No, and honestly, I think that too many people will forget. You know, as I said, you know, like I've said many, many times, the way that I look at these things. But I'm extremely happy to see this investigation happening. And now we're going to have more of this fraud get investigated. We're going to have more of these people get arrested. And honestly, like, I think not a moment too soon. Really, it should have been happening a lot longer than this. Crazy how they lie in God's name and almost like it means nothing? Yeah, of course, because they're just scammers, bro. Like, what do you expect? Tim Walz called me a delusional far-right conspiracy theorist and said that exposing the fraud in his state was white supremacy. It was the classic false smear tactic that's worked for so long, but it didn't work this time. Tim was exposed and dropped out. Tim lured. He sure did. Oh man, yeah, guys, the S stands for fraud. That's right. Good video about Assassination Society. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad people liked it. I am. And yeah, they tried to totally reframe this guy in the most disgusting way, didn't they? Oh my God. And yeah, 25% off. It's really, really funny for me to see this. It is officially Luring Day.
It is officially National Leering Day. The Leering Center has officially been raided, and play the clip.
Oh, God. Just to reclaim my city.
Yep.
Currently underway.
I mean, you got to admit, bro, that's a bit of aura that, like, you go and do this whole investigation, and then, like, you know, a few months later, the actual FBI and the fucking government has a search warrant, and they're like, yeah, actually, you got him.
Take a moment and enjoy the
Yeah.
center.
Take a look at this video here. Sources tell Fox that federal
Walls got mauled
agents
by a
are raiding
22-year-old
about
Mormon.
22 businesses across.
Imagine being the governor of one of the better states in the country, and you just absolutely get mauled by a 22-year-old Mormon YouTuber. And it gets so bad that you have to drop out of the election.
Minneapolis this morning, and sources say many of them are tied to Somali-owned operations. All of this comes after that viral YouTube video from Nick Shirley back in December. In that video, he visited different child care centers, and you'll remember there were stories where there were just no children inside, despite receiving free child care funding. Now, the location that we're looking at right now is the Quality Learning Center. This is in Good Care. It went viral. It blew up on social media because of a sign outside with a warning that literally misspelled. Looks like we got a statement from DHS sharing, quote, Homeland Security investigations in cooperation with federal law enforcement partners executed criminal search warrants in Minneapolis relating to the rampant fraud of U.S. taxpayers' dollars.
So there you have it. Over 20 businesses were raided by the FBI and HSI today because of fraud that took place. They had 22 search warrants for primarily Somaliland businesses because it just so happens to be that a lot of businesses in Minnesota that were fraudulent were ran by Somalians. And now we're going to talk about these locations that were raided. But I do think it's super important that we talk about somebody who's trying to claim credit for the fraud being exposed. That is Tim Walz. Tim Walz actually said at the height of this fraud that no evidence of fraud was taking place in Minnesota.
There's no evidence. Well, apparently they found evidence. Man.
However, today, Tim Walz is saying something completely different, trying to take credit for the fraud being exposed. And this is what Tim Walz had to say on X today. He said, if you commit fraud in Minnesota, you're going to get caught, and that's exactly what we saw today. We catch criminals when state and federal agencies share information, joint investigations work, and securing justice depends on it. He then said, today's raids by state and federal law enforcement happened because our state agencies caught irregular behavior and reported it.
You're actually just making this up. He's just lying.
That is a complete lie.
Yeah, he's just making it
Then he
up.
says, that's how the system is supposed to work, and our agencies will keep active as long as there are fraudulent laws supposed to be behind bars.
Right.
Well, Tim actually might have to get put behind bars because he enabled all this fraud to take place underneath his leadership in Minnesota. And just to talk about...
I don't see a single reason why we shouldn't try to put him in jail. But I can also, like, here's the thing, is that...
But not these vigilantes never surrender.
Like, wouldn't... I think we
Such
deserve
remarkable power.
I do. I think we deserve
You
it.
put it to good use.
Because
for
it'd be
once.
funny as fuck if we put him in jail, right? I mean, like, can you imagine that? Like, the video I get out of that? Oh, my God.
We've still got some heroin.
some of the stuff that was irregular inside of Minnesota, such as these 1,000% increases for the budget for autism. Meanwhile, there was not a 1,000% increase of children with autism, or the increase of money that they're giving to these daycares that's actually those things inside of the daycare. And with all this going on, I do have some good news. Right now, everything on my website is 45% off every link down below in the code Leering Day. If you go ahead and check out the Leering hoodie or anything that you have available, like t-shirts, things available, and just use code Leering Day for 45% off. Now let's get back into this and talking about fraud. And now let's actually talk about who deserves the most credit for exposing fraud, and that is David. Without David and his years and years of investigating fraud and seeking to get that public information about the money that was being spent on these daycares, none would have happened. And me and David proved that teamwork really does make the dream work. How about you? Teamwork. I got a video on that for 4 billion views.
4 million views? Oh my God. Bro, I didn't know it was... Jesus.
In just 1 week after we exposed the rampant fraud that took place inside of Minnesota. And now let's talk about the raids that took place with locations at the Quality Learning Center and a few of the other locations.
No, I think this is amazing. I'm very happy to see this. We need to watch the whole thing. But like, overall, this is it. Prevention now the fraud being exposed would be possible without David. He investigated this on his own for years, and we exposed the fraud together. David is the patriot. David is a patriot in the truest form. He doesn't care about recognition. He just wanted to help his country. A lot can be learned from David's example, and hopefully inspire others to make a difference in their own neighborhood. How about that? How about that? David v. Goliath stuff? He sure did. Yep, David and Goliath, the tale as old as time. And it's a good luring day in America. I love to see this, man. This is so fucking funny. I'm so happy. These people are actually getting arrested, and it could not be better. Oh my God. And then
Department, because Tim Walz, this is like the arsonist trying to claim credit for the work of the fire department, because Tim Walz let this fraud happen
credit for the work of the fire department.
for his watch. Whether he was complicit in it directly himself or just turned a blind eye towards it, we really did not get much help at all
from the governor's office. Where we did actually get some help is from some state and local law enforcement officers who we assigned to the federal task force because the state government wasn't doing anything. So all credit goes to people on the ground, the federal officers, the state officers who are working to uncover these frauds.
State officers roaching out on their own government because they're like, yeah, bro, we know this is bad. Okay, so what do you need us to do? Okay, yeah, they're over there. Go ahead. Yeah, this is what we've got so far. Yeah, see what you can do. Yep, exactly. No, I love to see this. It's great. It's amazing. Everyone did it. We know that.
That's a noble sacrifice. The noble sacrifice.
Man, people are why would people
These vigilantes never
published a paper shocking implications. We're using secret algorithms to figure out what drivers are. Based on facts, we call them algorithmic
before I devour you.
And this technology, before is specific to riders. Once that technology is in there, they can waive prices. On a hot summer day, you want a lot of ice cream, you want lemonade, they can raise the price. The price of more. Even your
I shall feast on your bones.
There's dynamic pricing, yeah, for sure. Because it's availability-based pricing. Yeah, sure. Okay.
It's called steel.
So about a year ago, I started to the company.
These vigilantes
They largely only the kind that the evidence seems to be shed. A single study, a hint in the earnings. It was mostly theory.
Run while you still can.
So basically, does a driver's driving history have any impact on the amount of money that they will offer for a ride? Characteristics like gender, race, or ethnicity. These two things are not related to each other. So if they respond like that, that's not saying that they're not doing anything. That's just saying that the algorithm isn't factoring in discriminatory in terms of discrimination in like just a dictionary definition versus discrimination in like a literal definition which is based on gender.
Thank you, my friend.
Or past behavior. Yeah, behavior or past behavior on our platform, like their ratings.
Once again, the Vampire King is defeated.
Yeah, you're right.
And the darkness has been
They didn't highlight that.
But is this really the end of the story?
Was that the evidence seemed to be shed. A single study, a hint in an earnings call, a story from a driver.
Yeah, it's a good
one. It was
one.
mostly theoretical. Until a few months ago, when I got an email from a guy. I had published a video that argued Uber's newfound profitability came at the expense of drivers and riders.
Oh, I could immediately believe that.
He said, we were at the tip of the iceberg. So I called him. We talked. 3 weeks later, I was on a flight to Los Angeles, looking to settle the question once and for all. Are rideshare companies offering drivers different rates for the same work? What I found put the legality of this whole tech revolution in question.
I think so.
They have broken every single local, state, federal law when it comes to labor, when it comes to transportation.
That's Sergio Avedian. He sent me the email. He's an experienced driver and a senior contributor at the Rideshare Guy, an influential resource for gig economy workers.
We were used to something called a rate card. We were used to getting paid by time and distance.
Then, overnight, the transparency vanished, replaced by a secret algorithm that takes into account potentially hundreds of different variables.
Yeah.
They called it upfront pricing.
Okay.
Uber's losses turned to profits around that same time.
I bet they
Coincidence? I don't know. Lyft followed suit, and now they claim they're on the path to profitability.
The algorithms are set up in a way to charge the rider as much as it's possible, and to pay the driver as little as possible.
A lot of drivers feel
that's true, right? And that's why Uber and Lyft are popular. Like for me, I've used Uber multiple times, and this is really kind of what the problem is that I don't think that the actual customer cares whether the drivers are being taken advantage of. Like if you told somebody, don't use Uber because it takes advantage of its drivers, I can't see somebody acting on that information. Yeah, I don't care, right? Because like people just want to get to where they want to go and they want to be able to do it cheaper, right? It's good business. Exactly. Well, I mean, customers aren't going to care about like the working condition. It's like, you know, like we buy from Amazon, right? And like other things that are like way worse than that. That's not our problem. Yeah, exactly.
Uber and Lyft are paying
like
different
somebody who's
wages
used Uber,
for
it's
the
been
same
very
rides.
useful for me.
But we don't really know because the companies, they aren't talking.
We're doing a very simple thing. We're picking up people point A to dropping off point B.
Yeah, sure.
I shouldn't make less money than the next guy. I should not. But because it's not regulated...
I don't think that's true, actually. I think that if somebody has a better driving history and they've had a proven level of success, that they should be paid more. And I think that if you look at this in any other industry, this is also the case. People that have worked in a job for a longer period of time usually have higher wages and higher salaries that have increased over time. This is seniority with anything. So I find this to be interesting that this is a problem. Why is this a unique problem with Uber when every other industry functions the exact same way? And it's merit-driven compensation. Yeah, exactly. Like, should somebody who's getting 3-star reviews constantly be getting paid the same amount who's somebody who's getting 5-star reviews constantly? I don't think that they should. Where's the fairness in that? Yeah, I'm not seeing this.
Because we don't have rate cards, because we don't know what we're going to make, trip to trip, demoralizing, upsetting.
So with Sergio's help, we decided to test it.
Okay.
We called 7 experienced drivers.
All right.
To a high traffic area in Los
it.
Angeles with the sole purpose of testing if rideshare companies are paying different rates for the same rides. At the start, each driver will activate their screen capture software, open up the app, and place their phones on the table.
Right.
Why the table? Sergio has done similar experiments, and the rate disparities were blamed on location.
Wishes to reclaim my city.
When the experiments are done, drivers will send their screen recording to Sergio's team, who will then sync and analyze the pairs.
You just made the only
And then
smart
we're going to see
choice.
what's really going on.
Me against an undead army? I like those odds.
All right.
Gear up. These enemies won't quit. But neither will you, it seems.
So what's the disparity here?
You're getting paid $1 more for those there, according to the map, and nobody else has seen that dollar hit.
Uber offers the same ride 46 times to multiple drivers. Wow. 63% of the time, one of the drivers was offered a bit less money for the exact same ride.
They want to make a few pennies on people's ability to report. So the last earnings report is making part of the way to go.
Yeah, of course.
Lyft was even the price gap wasn't just a little off, it was a lot off. We saw differences of up to $3 to $4 after bonus.
Damn! Damn!
And drivers don't know why one person gets a bonus and another doesn't.
Well, that adds up to like $10 a day, Why should I
would assume that they're probably not doing it algorithmically and including things that could be categorized as discrimination. Because paying employees based off of prior performance isn't against the law. I'm pretty sure that's actually how most companies work. So, I'm not like, they're all 5-star too? Yeah, they are. They have the same rating? Yeah, but the rating probably isn't the only thing they have that's being factored in. Both are 5-star? Yeah, but that's, you really think that's the only grading metric that they have? What are we talking about? But an employee is informed. The issue is that it's hidden from them. It's illegal, I'm pretty sure. The employee is informed of everybody else's salary. No, they're not. If you're working somewhere, you don't know what everybody else's salary is. That's not true, but that's the thesis. The variables are unknown. Yeah, but once you start accepting low rates, you're going to be offered low rates. Ooh, that could be a bad way. So there could be a hidden, dark pattern inside of the algorithm that continuously gives people that accept low rates more low rates, and people that don't accept low rates higher rates. Which, to be fair, is actually what happens in real life. A lot of times people that are more aggressive with asking for a higher salary, on average, have higher salaries. So, yeah.
Less $300 a month than the other guy.
I contacted Uber and Lyft to see how they calculate. Lyft, well, they never respond.
Yeah, they're not that strong.
Uber directed me to Lyft. I explained the experiment below. They replied by copying and pasting a portion of that same law. The section outlines different reasons drivers could see different fares. But we controlled for everything that we called to different fares.
What is that? Our technology models estimated time to arrival based on GPS location.
Take a moment and enjoy the peace.
Physical location. Surge depends on the driver's location. Surge heat maps in order to continuously improve the driver's app. We've been testing new features and models that result from fares to drivers. Offers may include boosts like zero emissions incentive on top of the fare. Promotions may vary for city and locally. So this actually could be true if different cars are getting a different rate.
The section outlines different reasons drivers could choose different fares.
They accounted for all that? No, they didn't. They only accounted for what they could account for. That's what he said, which was two separate things.
But we controlled for everything that we could.
See?
We called the drivers from the same space.
Right.
Placed their phones and chase them.
Yes.
Had drivers monitoring incoming communities and constantly refreshing their state. The only thing we didn't account for was any secret test Uber had been running on the trip, which we couldn't because of their algorithms and the test. There's a whole lot of stuff, like money, business data, and there's no laws against algorithmic versions.
Yeah.
That article mentions that just an opaque algorithm can easily facilitate
Well,
violations.
there are laws against algorithmic wage discrimination. That's actually not true, because if the algorithm is taking into consideration a person's race, gender, or sexuality, then yes, that would be against the law. So any sort of so there are certain protected traits that people have that you can't discriminate based off of.
Anti-discrimination. Uber denies this, but their own research reveals a glaring disparity. Women drivers earn 7% less money. Potentially, either under but there's an argument that the entire business model is illegal.
From our perspective, Lyft's business model is based on control without responsibility.
That's David Stewart. He's the executive director of Ford Students, a legal nonprofit that defends workers from corporate organization. In 2017, the organization helped lead a lawsuit on behalf of free rideshare drivers.
The lawsuit says if you are not subject to or accountable to the labor laws, then powerful firms that are using their power under state antitrust, competition law, and unfair and deceptive action practices laws.
David is describing the cognitive dissonance rideshare operators have in classifying drivers. They want to have it both ways. Uber and Lyft classify drivers as independent contractors, not employees.
Yeah.
A crucial distinction. As an employee, you're making money.
Everybody does this. Not everybody, but a lot of companies do this to avoid having to pay different types of fees. Yeah, it's extremely common. You can't prove discrimination, and the employer doesn't have to give you a reason they don't hire you. The law does nothing. Well, there have been plenty of companies that have been sued and fined for discrimination. This has happened many times. And it was made against the law, and companies try to avoid doing that. Obviously it happens. I'm sure that people do get discriminated against and they don't get jobs. Of course it happens. But I'm sure people get in trouble for it. Are we trying to say no company has ever lost a discrimination lawsuit? What are we talking about?
which means benefits effectively. Now, boss, he can tell you what time it should be. But anything in contract is totally routine. It's no benefit to everybody, but freedom, do your own boss. Yeah.
These drivers are in their state independent, then they need to have economic independence. You let companies deny them that economic independence.
Wait, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel like that. Like, what?
Most important is by taking away their ability to then
Giving up the price for providers and wages for drivers, and that's
They are setting a price by accepting the price. It's the same thing as you're setting a price for yourself when you choose to take a job at a certain rate of compensation. Like, I don't even think it's like, he means they should be able to decide how much they get paid. Well, they can't. They choose not to take the ride if they don't think that it's enough money. Yeah, you absolutely have the ability to do that. Missing market? Well, yeah, am I confused about something? No, because I'm not understanding. What am I missing here? They want to treat them like independent contractors, but they want to set their prices for them?
These vigilantes never surrender. Another less than noble sacrifice.
I'm really confused by that because, like, so I've had contractors who work for me, and unless a price is agreed upon, like, both parties have the ability to consent or not to consent to the business. I'm not understanding how this problem is. Yeah, they told you what the price was, and you chose to consent to this. I'm so confused. They can't negotiate it, though? Well, sometimes that's the same with any contract. That's not one-dimensional. They can, and by the way, they can negotiate it by saying no. You're choosing not to understand at this point. The algorithm punishes them. They can't get worse. Well, I'm not getting this. I'm sorry, I'm really not understanding this. If they cancel, they don't get more rides? Are you saying that's not fair or not reasonable? Are you saying that Uber should not be able to do that? Of course they should be able to do that. It's not a negotiation between two parties. How is it not a negotiation? The IRS defines financial control for independent contractors versus self-employed. Yeah, the IRS is defining it, but they said usually in general.
Congratulations on surviving.
And that doesn't mean it's a hard and
another
fast
round.
rule. I'm not understanding where the problem is here. If they don't work on Uber's terms, they don't work at all. That's the same with any contractor.
More vampires have arrived. Ready yourself for battle.
Of course that's true. The opposite would be like, yes, the opposite is slavery. That you have to work on somebody else's terms. I'm not understanding this at all. This is crazy. Like, I'm genuinely, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around where the complaints are coming from. But I'm really not understanding. Because logically, if I hire a contractor to, like, let's say, cut down a tree in my house, or not in my house, but in my yard, if the contractor does not agree on terms that I choose, I can choose not to do business with that contractor. And I have complete discrepancy as an individual to make that decision based off whatever factors that I choose reasonably. So I don't see how Uber doesn't have that same reservation. True, but you're not a big company. So they're a big company, so they have to pay people? That's not how it works. If that was how it works, then you would see people getting fired by the thousands of companies. You're not on the worker's side. What's what about this is what a monopoly? But there is a monopoly. Now, if you want to argue that Uber and like there are taxi services as well, I think that are there any other like ride-sharing services besides Uber? I think those are like the two big ones, right? It's like probably 50-50. So you think that it's a monopoly? So they should be regulated because they're a monopoly. I mean, maybe you could be right about that. I mean, I don't think that's what the video's even. Like, the only people that are saying that, it's not, it's not a monopoly, number one. But I understand the argument that, like, if two companies control 99% of the market share, and they're not really competing against each other in a functional way, then they are functioning as a monopoly. You're right about that. I think that's true. That's like the Apple Play Store and the, the Google Play Store and the Apple Store. I think I think it's the same thing. Sure. The need to pay their dues, no competition means price fixing. Well, I mean, it's very obviously not price fixing. I believe the confusion is you can hire a contractor, set a price, and so on. But once it becomes regular, the issue is if the company is treating drivers as the wrong form of employee or contractor. So giving dynamic payment based off of previous work makes them an employee, not a contractor. That doesn't make sense to me either. It's about employee classification and how Uber is falsely calling their employees independent contractors in order to skip out on obligations to them. IRS definition, you are not an independent contractor if you perform services that can be controlled by an employee.
But neither will you, it seems.
I feel like services and control need to be defined there. I think that's too broad of a definition. They don't have to subject themselves, only works in the utopia.
Vacation's over.
Run while you still can.
I'm saying, like, are they breaking the law?
I shall feast on your bones.
Is this against the law? I don't see this being against the law.
Never!
It seems like it's not. And I'm really just not understanding. I'm not understanding any of the arguments that people are doing. Because, like, I think about, like, parallel examples in this timeline, and it would immediately not make sense.
One thing.
We're not one.
Before I devour you.
We're just a platform, and all of our drivers are independent.
I shall feast on your
They
bones.
need to have the economic independence to set their own prices.
Another lesson no
They also want Uber and Lyft to treat them like actual independent contractors.
When I don't have a contract, you keep calling me an independent contractor, there's something very
And for drivers to depend on rideshare platforms to make a living,
So he's saying that because these people don't have the negotiation ability
Before I devour
of the
you.
deal, outside of being able to say no, then they're not an independent contractor.
I shall feast on your bones.
noble sacrifice.
I'm gonna be totally honest. Yeah, not really. Because they can say yes or no. I don't see how that distinction would logically mean somebody is or isn't an independent contractor or an employee. I don't see these two things being
noble sacrifice.
They don't have a choice. Everybody has a choice of employment because they're working there because they choose to work there. Yes and no is not a negotiation.
Once again, the Vampire King is defeated, and the darkness has been banished.
Especially for people that do this full time.
Is this really
In
the
California,
end of the story?
they're working 70 to 80 hours just to put food on the table, which is really, really rough.
And you look at who's on the board of both of these companies, it tells you that we have nobody on our side, right?
Of course.
When the general
Yeah.
counsel of Uber is Tony West, and he's the brother-in-law of Kamala Harris.
Yeah. Yeah,
Then-
all the people that are leading the company are just, it's all a big club and you're not in it. Yeah, absolutely.
It tells
Totally.
you that these companies are tight with government. Why does Uber win? Well, because it's rigged in their favor, right?
There's a reality where drivers could be actual independent contractors, set their own rates on these platforms, and compete for your business. But that's not our world. Yet. Instead, the companies are spending hundreds of millions of dollars rewriting state labor law to reinforce the idea that drivers aren't employees, while using the fine print to handle private challenges.
That's been absolutely essential to Uber's and Lyft's business model. So while they've tried to race to write laws to their benefit, they've also tried to protect themselves from public litigation through the fine print of their contracts and through arbitration clauses.
That's where David's case on behalf of the 3 drivers ended. A superior court sent it to private arbitration. The end result isn't public.
We should also be clear about is just because you're exempt from laws governing, for example, unemployment insurance premiums, that doesn't mean you're exempt from antitrust laws and competition laws.
That part I agree with. That see now we're getting into things that I do agree with, is that if Uber and Lyft are basically price matching, which is pretty much price fixing, then yeah, it's a huge problem because, I mean, nobody else in the market can compete. Absolutely.
Federal and state enforcers aren't subject to forced arbitration agreements. They can investigate and bring enforcement actions against these rideshare companies.
It's likely also a violation of state competition law, especially in states like California that prohibit vertical price fixing. So the California Attorney General's office would also be in a prime position to investigate the issue and bring an enforcement action like that one.
But this issue of algorithmic pricing stretches beyond rideshare.
We're just at the beginning stages of what I feel is like a battle between the common folk and then that managerial class and upwards.
There's credible reporting that Walmart, Amazon, and McDonald's are all experimenting with the technology. Those companies employ
Wendy's got in trouble for this recently, where Wendy's was saying that they were going to change the prices for things dynamically but not having them on the menu, and just change them based off of how many things they have in stock. Yeah, this is very true.
For 3 million people. In July, the FTC announced it was investigating surveillance pricing. That's the practice of companies using complex algorithms and untold data points to offer personalized pricing. The fear is that prices for something like children's Tylenol will suddenly skyrocket across major online stores just because you typed infant fever into Google. Why? Because retailers know you're desperate. The FTC is investigating Walmart, Amazon, and the leading technology vendors. We need to do the same thing, but for wages. The power of these giants lies in their ability to keep everyone, consumers, drivers, regulators, blindfolded. They're backed by billions of dollars worth of sophisticated algorithms and legal gymnastics, leaving us to fight in the dark. Maybe there's an innocent explanation to our fair experiment, but we won't know until the federal government shines a light.
It's like, yeah, I'm...
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. If you have ideas for stories you want us to uncover next, please drop them in the comments below.
I'm so confused about this. Dynamic pricing is a way for them to introduce higher prices, just so they know that people will spend more during certain times. Yeah, of course. I think the blindfold is the problem. Please look further into this in your spare time. This is why so many workers across industries are upset and can't afford basic needs. Well, I mean, I understand that very well. I get that. I mean, that's the case everywhere. And this isn't just something with independent contractors. It's something with people that are employees, right? I mean, this is a problem with everybody. It's not like this is an Uber-specific issue. It lacks transparency. Well, like, does Uber have the obligation to tell you what other people are being paid? I feel like as a contractor, you don't have that obligation, right? Like, I don't think that they do. Yes, but they're not employees. Yeah, but they don't have that. They don't have that obligation even if they're not. This person is not understanding their employment. Yeah, I'm just really confused by this. Because, like, any of the argumentation that they use, I feel like if you apply it to a different situation, it wouldn't work. It's not simple, though that's why I'm trying to understand it. It works like Fiverr. if you say no, you get low ranked and you get SEO bombed, so you never have a chance to get any client again. Well, like, wouldn't that make sense if you work for anybody else as an independent contractor? Like, if you hire a guy to do a job, like, let's say you're running, like, you're doing landscaping, right? No? Well, okay, so, like, follow my logic with this, right? So, like, if you have a landscaping company and you're hiring guys on to do a job, and you constantly call a guy to do a job and he keeps saying no, wouldn't you just, at a certain point, stop calling him? It's not the same. How is it not the same? The laws for independent contractors are awful. They can't complain about how they're currently set up because everyone left is following the law. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. You don't understand?
Dracula
we have no option to put I don't want $3 rides. You can get something as low as $2 where you live.
Guardian.
Sure, but you also have the ability to say no, I don't want to take that. Like, I know plenty of contractors, and I've heard plenty of stories where contractors are offered rates that are really low and they turn them down. Like, if a person has the ability to turn down a rate, then I don't see where the problem is. Because nobody is acting out of any forced behavior.
Fascinating. Now, who's the real monster? More vampires have arrived. Ready yourself for battle. And don't you dare let Mark sit you down.
Jobs are not what they used to be. The average time an employee spends with their company is now at the lowest level ever, and that's by design. We have gone from full-time to part-time to casual to gig work, lowering the expectation of a long-term...
It's crazy how many people do like Uber, and they do Uber Eats or Lyft or some sort of thing like this. It's actually crazy how popular it is.
A relationship every step of the way. If
DoorDash, yeah.
Studies have shown that many workplaces are now intentionally promoting the fear of job losses in an attempt to motivate workers to eat cost them.
That's smart. That's a good idea. Yeah, you got to make them think that they're on the ropes.
This is usually a really dumb idea. The death of job security is bad for workers and bad for companies, but nobody cares anymore.
So we have immediately seen, Andrew, layoffs.
Yep.
We've seen price increases, so that's inflation. Take your staff.
Well, it's also like, I mean, if they're paying more money, like the, what do you call it? Like the amount of money that like jobs are paying, like minimum wage goes up, they're going to be able to get better candidates, just in general. Like the more money you pay for a job, the better candidates you're going to get. Just on average. It's not a one-to-one, but there's this fucking extremely strong correlation.
Coast to coast could soon be out of the job.
15 million new jobs. Vacation's over.
The Musk said the company would look to reduce headcount by around 10%, piling up this year. And we're just a few weeks into 2024.
Up until the 1980s, it wasn't unusual for workers to spend their entire professional careers working with just one company. Company loyalty was highly valued by both employers and employees, and the threat of getting laid off or fired was incredibly low. If you ever watch old films and see someone getting fired as a major plot point, just remember it actually was a big deal back then.
What was this one? The car salesman movie, Alec Baldwin. Not Never Give An Inch. That's something else. Glengarry Glen Ross.
I remember seeing this, bro. This guy is like Alec Baldwin, huge fucking asshole, great fucking actor. He was so good with it. Coffees for closers, that's right. So good.
But according to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, those days are long gone. The average tenure of young employees these days is less than a third of the baby boomers exiting the workforce.
I think a lot of people also, this is encouraged by now that people are able to communicate more online. There is a very, very common assumption that, you know, whether it's true or not is irrelevant. People think this, that the best way to increase your salary is to, instead of increasing your rank at your current job, is to hop between company to company and then get your salary up that way instead.
I don't want to sound too old here, but back in my day, people actually cared about losing their job. But today, getting fired or laid off from your company just makes a good content to post on TikTok. This is a bad thing.
I don't agree with this. I think that's not true. I think the only reason he's saying that is because he's not looking at the single moms that get fired to lose their house. Like, go out there to the side of the street and talk to all those people and think about how easy was it for them to get laid off of their job. Yeah, for sure, some 19-year-old pretty girl isn't going to have this problem because she can find a guy to live with, or she can go back and live with her parents. But for like an average person, getting fired from your job is absolutely fucking life-changing. It's not even a question.
Companies, because it takes away their biggest stick. The fear of getting fired is always going to be a motivator in the workplace. There really is no way around that. If you don't do your job or cause too much trouble for the company, you are going to lose your job.
Well, that's the way it should be. If you're not doing your job, you should get fired. Yeah, wow, what a fucking surprise. We're gonna act like this is bad? Yeah, no shit.
But the pay and benefits that come with it. But as the great Peter Tibbets would say, that will only make someone work just hard enough to not get fired. The death of job security means that people just expect to lose their job at some point in their career these days. But there are 3 big reasons why it was allowed to get this bad, and 3 reasons why nobody really cares anymore. The first reason is that companies give up on training their own staff. There is an old joke about company staffing that goes something like this. The CEO and head of HR are arguing about the cost to train staff. The CEO asks, what would happen if we spent all this money and they quit? To which the head of HR responds, what happens if we don't spend the money and they stay? But as more people move jobs more often, the CEO's argument is actually starting to make sense. Research conducted by Peter Capelli, the director of the Wharton School Center for Human Resources, found that the time and money spent on staff training within companies has fallen drastically. In 1979, the average worker received 2.5 weeks on the job training every single year.
It's also, if you keep rotating employees regularly for easy jobs that don't require a lot of like intuitive thinking or critical thinking, you're able to keep salaries lower. Because, you know, like a lot of the times whenever people get cut from jobs, like there's actually even laws against this, where like you can't just cut people because their salary has gotten too high. Well, think about why there's laws against it. Well, there's laws against it because that's what people try to do.
2004 through 2011, and most of that was safety training, not developing new skills. A more recent follow-up survey conducted by the same team in 2011 found that only 3/5 of workers received
Get around those laws easy.
on-the-job training at all within the last year. Companies don't want to train people because they are leaving their jobs more frequently than they used to. So they are only willing to hire employees that are already able to do the job.
You truly believe yourself
I've made this a lot easier for them to do. If you are a professional office worker, it's almost a prerequisite to have a basic proficiency in Microsoft Office. And every profession now has its own industry standard productivity program. If you are a creative, you use Adobe Suite. If you're in sales, you use HubSpot or comparable CRM. And if you're in marketing, you need to know your way around a box of crayons. Oh, the advertising analytics backend of Google, Meta, and LinkedIn. Since these skills have become the standard for all employees, companies can hire people that are already ready to work on day one. Where in the past,
well, why would you want to? Well, it's like, yeah, of course. It's like if you're in a raiding guild, would you want to gear somebody up or just recruit somebody to the guild that's geared? Oh, it's a lot easier to just recruit somebody to the guild that's geared. Like, why would you want to gear up a whole new person? Yeah, want the easy way? Yeah, exactly. It's not a new question.
Training program on the unique in-house systems of that particular company.
Yeah.
Standardized programs have also meant that people can find a new job that they are qualified for with less barriers, which means they switch jobs more often, which means companies invest less into training unloyal staff, which means even more need for
It's also because people don't have upward mobility inside of their own jobs. I don't know if he's going to cover this at all, but this is probably, I think, one of the biggest reasons. It's because, like, Blizzard, ironically, is actually one of the companies that at least I'm aware of that doesn't have this problem, where there is a lot of upward mobility, but or at least there used to be. But with a lot of companies, you're kind of like, bracketed in, where you can only go like maybe 3 positions above your platform before you have to join another company and then do 3 more and then go back to your original company, and then somehow now you're qualified to do the job that they said they were not going to hire you for fucking 5 years ago. Maybe it's already too much? Sure, I'm throwing out a number. Same with salary bumps? Yeah, definitely. Right? That's what I've been
system. The ultimate incarnation of this trend is platform-based gig.
Yep, there it is.
Professional relationships this kind of work lasts as long
This is the beginning of neo-feudalism. This is the beginning of neo-feudalism, by the way, where you have a lot of people whose job it is to only drive around other people with more money than them. This is the beginning. We're seeing it. It's right in front of us. Nobody wants to acknowledge it. It's happening, and it's going to get worse every year. It's just a taxi? It's like, dude, Uber and Lyft is, I would say, 20x or 50x more prevalent and more common than a taxi. Way more. And it didn't really have food delivery except for like a couple of places, like pizza places, maybe Chinese, a couple of other places had delivery. Now everything's got it.
App is running, and riders often work between multiple apps at the same time to maximize earning and minimize downtime. If you want to get ahead in a professional career these days, I'm sorry to tell you, but you are going to have to invest some of your own time and money into training yourself, even if it's just to tick a meaningless qualification box.
Yep.
Companies aren't going to train you anymore, which means if you quit or get laid off, it's not as big
My
of a...
perspective on this is always lie and cheat on every resume that you possibly can, because the company will do the exact same thing to you given the opportunity. Only don't do that in situations where you can be held criminally liable for not doing it, or in situations where it will be immediately disproven and it can be damaging to you. Other than that, lie about everything and mislead them as much as you can, because they'll do the same thing to you.
A deal for either party. But the decline of on-job training is just the first reason. So it's time to learn how money works, to find out why job security is dying, why nobody cares, and what happens when nobody has a job for long enough